of MDEC since December 1st, 2021. She is also Director of Talent Corp Malaysia Berhad and a member of the This is Slido. So there is Slido. I will actually announce the Slido before I call you. Okay, so I did it. You can remind sometimes the A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, to Breakout Room 2, where we will be focusing on Track 2, Tech Enablers. We'd like to welcome everyone who's interested in this session to kindly make your way into the hall, as we will be about to start very soon. All of our speakers for this session are already here, so we're just waiting for this hall to fill up and then we can begin. Thank you. In just a very short while, we'll be starting with panel session 10 with the topic Shortage or Mismatch, Solving the Talent Dilemma Through the Triple Helix Model. A very pertinent topic considering that a big point of discussion over the last 2 days has been the shortage of talent in the industry. So, digital talent, where are they? Are they here? Is there a mismatch, or are they just... Are we losing them to other countries? What's actually going on? We'll find out the answers for that in our next session. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be starting Breakout Room 2 in a very short while with panel 10. Please do make your way into the hall so we can begin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start. Please do take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone who's still hanging around outside the hall, please do make your way inside as we will be starting our session right away. All right, a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Breakout Room 2 on day 2 of Malaysia Digital Week. Are you all hyped for today's sessions, ladies and gentlemen? We had some very good sessions yesterday. Honestly, I learned so much just listening into everything. And today's sessions also proved to be very exciting indeed. We have some wonderful topics and some fantastic panelists to share on those issues with you. I'm Shani Manli, and it's my pleasure to join you again this morning. I've been talking a lot, so apologies for my croaky voice. Okay, today we'll be rounding up key issues pertaining to Malaysia's digital ambitions. Yesterday, we looked into drone technology, our readiness to be a data-driven nation, and the exciting prospects of Web 3 for Malaysia. But today in this room, we'll focus again on track 2, tech enablers. Breakout Room 1 is focusing on the tech sector, but this time we're focusing on the areas of talent acquisition, data centers, and cybersecurity, 3 extremely important issues whenever we talk about digital economy. So to unpack these issues, we'll have key players in the industry to share their views. Some of them are already here. All in all, it looks like a very interesting couple of hours ahead in this room. Now, for our first session this morning, we'll try to answer the perennial dilemma that's been raised in most of the sessions we've had over the last couple of days. Where is all the digital talent? Are we suffering a shortage of talent, or is it simply that we're dealing with a mismatch of competencies? This session aims to use the triple helix model to delve into the different perspectives on this issue, and hopefully we'll come out of it with a clearer way to align strategies in our bid to foster digital talent for Malaysia. Now, since this is such a relevant topic, I'm sure you'll all have questions for our panelists, so please do check into Slido using the QR code that we're going to post up on the screen for your questions. Just quickly scan this right now. Any questions that you have during the session, just post them up during the session so that during the Q&A we can pull them up immediately for you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to chair panel 10, please welcome our moderator for this session, Izana Saleh, Board of Directors, MDEC. Izana has been an independent non-executive director of MDEC since December 1st, 2021. She is also a director of Talent Corporation Malaysia Berhad and a member of the SOXO investment panel. Apart from these important roles, I'm very proud to share also that Izana is also the co-founder and president of Girls for Girls International, a global not-for-profit organization for young women, while also helming Rise Human Capital, where as CEO she is focused on developing talent, making her an excellent moderator for today's session. Izana, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Shani. I am so delighted to be here, but even more delighted to see all of you and that at least half the room is women. That's always what I look out for, especially in events that are digital economy related, tech related. Got to make sure my girls are out there, right? Okay, so Shani, thanks so much for setting context. Just a little bit before I call my triple helix man up here, why we want to have this conversation today is, as you know, over the last couple of years, the industries have gone through some really turbulent times, especially when it comes to digital talent. We have so many even non-ICT industries like the tobacco industry, renewable energies, environment, etc. We see them transitioning and starting to hire more digital talents. And the conclusion there is that there is an acceleration in digitalization. And based on the data that MDEC has provided, we've got over 260,000 digital talents, and 55% of them are based in Selangor and KL. But what we see over the last 3 quarters of this year is that in Penang, Johor, and Malacca, and Ipoh, they've been identified as states with potential hiring of digital talents because of relatively higher supply against the demand. So today's conversation is really to dig a little deeper with the three different industries, the triple helix that we've been talking about. We want to invite our panelists for today, Nick Naharuddin from MDEC, of course, Vic Warren from OutSystems, and Professor Dr. Ho from Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation. Gentlemen, thank you. I love the fact that I get to moderate and say I've got my manifestation of the triple helix right here. So let me introduce a little bit about yourselves to our audience today. I went through your background and it's extremely impressive. I'm humbled and honored to be able to have this conversation with you. Let's start with my colleague over there, Nick. Nick Naharuddin heads the Digital Talent Department at MDEC, and his main responsibility is to drive efforts towards meeting current and future needs of digital technology talent through synergistic collaborations between academia, industry players, and the government. The various initiatives that you probably have had touch points with that's run by MDEC have benefited current and future talents across schools, tertiary education, as well as the existing workforce. Thank you, Nick, for all the effort that you and your team put in. I know there's a lot that you do. We've got our very distinguished Vic Warren, who's the country manager for Malaysia and Brunei of OutSystems. And I love this profile. From the evolution of infrastructure, networking, security, consulting services to the transformation of business applications via SaaS, Vic Warren has always been the enabler of Malaysia's changing IT market. After spending more than 19 years in the companies such as Microsoft, Oracle, HP, and IBM, he's excited to represent OutSystems, the high-performance, low-code platform empowering every company to innovate through software. Thank you so much, Vic, for being here. And of course, Professor Dr. Ho, who is the Vice Chancellor of Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation. He's also a fellow at the Yangtze Delta Region Institute of Tsinghua University, China. He has over 15 years of experience across various senior leadership positions in academia. Dr. Ho has worked with clients from numerous industries and government agencies, where he led the design, development, and delivery of solutions spanning the areas of smart services, IT master planning, network fault analysis, and data analytics. So as you can see, I'm really here to facilitate the best brains in this business. So thank you. Let's keep this casual, if that's all right. Maybe loosen up a little bit those shoulders, all right? Okay, so why don't we get this conversation going with Nick? Okay, since you're the furthest from me, let's bring you a little closer. Nick, maybe you can share with the audience, what are some of the macro level interactions that you or MDEC have developed and implemented as an enabler for the Malaysian digital talent ecosystem? Let's start there.
Morning, Assalamualaikum. Thanks, Izana. So MDEC, we've been in this industry for over 20 years, and in the beginning we didn't have this talent initiative as part of our the things that we do. But after a few years, we realized that the industry really need a dedicated and focused intervention from the government side. So that's why we started. First, we started small, but towards the end, until now, we have actually covered the whole spectrum of the talent ecosystem, starting from schools, both secondary and primary, tertiary, as well as into the workforce, right? So, because as Izana mentioned in my profile just now, we make sure that the pipeline is secured and the existing workforce is also having the right kind of skills which is required by the industry. So at the pipeline, we have instituted a few initiatives, mainly to make sure that there is enough interest from the students at the primary, so that we secure a big funnel, and then making sure that the curriculum and the teachers are also having the right level of expertise to make sure that those students who are interested gets the right kind of exposure to the digital talent. So we started a few initiatives like the My Digital Maker movement, where we have touched through the curriculum and everything, we touched over 2 million students nationwide. This year alone, we are looking at approaching 50,000 of the school children, just to make sure that the pipeline is there. But having this pipeline means that we have to prepare the university to accept these students. So that's why we work closely with the Ministry of Higher Education. And we started this initiative, which we call them the Premier Digital Tech Institutions, where right now there's already 23 institutions, universities and polytechnics alike, including our very own APU, Dr. Ho. So what we do at this PDTI is that we make sure that the industry have open access to these institutions so that they can influence the curriculum, they can train the lecturers, and they can interact directly with the students. So the students are being absorbed as their interns, doing projects for the industry, as well as getting gainful employment at the industry, right? So, and after that, of course, at the workforce, we make sure that the current workforce, they are continuously updated in terms of skills. So last year we started the MyWIT program, My Workforce Intact, whereby we help those companies who are recovering from COVID to hire new employees and train up these employees. So this is really to make sure that the industry are able to cope and get the right kind of talent. And we also have, through our industry partners, we also have other initiatives such as Let's Learn Digital, which is a free training where public and students alike can go in and get the latest content, which is prepared by the industry, and in return they get digital badges and all that. So this is also to help the students, become more employable. So, and we are doing all this not on our own, but through the Triple Helix. So that's why we work closely with the university, and we are very glad that we have strong industry partners assisting us. We have established the TEN, the Tech Expert Network, where this Tech Expert Network have been advising the universities on what kind of content should go into the curriculum, and have been advising us in terms of what sort of trainings are in demand and should be offered to the public. So that's as an intro.
In my short experience at MDEC, I have to say the amount of programs that they have for industry, for our people, is immense. The only thing is they have to come and see what you have to offer. It's really amazing. Thank you so much, Nick. I have a few questions, but in the interest of time, I'll do that in the next round. Thanks for that, setting that foundation right there. Dr. Ho, if we can come to you and speak to you from the university's perspective. So post-pandemic, how do you actually curate your curriculum in a way that we can ensure the students are well equipped to join the industry after they graduate? We have a lot of very outspoken young people these days, and they say, oh no, there's no space, there's no jobs for us, etc. Is this actually a mismatch? What are esteemed professors like you doing to ensure they get to plug in well?
Sure, thank you, Izana. I think it's a very good question. Let me start by saying this. From a higher education industry perspective, we as in, I can speak for my own institution, how we do things. We got to get the mindset right in the sense that the goal of higher education is actually to ensure that we have good talents going into the industry. So our clients, higher education clients, if you want to have it, is actually the industry, right? So we got to make sure that students who come in are trained as professionals going into industry. Now this mindset, if I mention the goal of higher education is just to give a degree to students, so you see the difference? If we work on the mission that right, my goal is actually to make sure that industries in Malaysia, right, have the right talent, quality talent, that will drive me to ensure that my curriculum, or the curriculum in higher education, is geared towards that, right? So starting off with the right mindset, with the right mission is so important, right? Because it drives what you do in higher education, right? Now, having that right mindset, then we move on to the question of what should we put in curriculum, right? So it's interesting you brought up the issue of pandemic. I think this question has been there even before the pandemic. So pandemic or no pandemic, I think we got to answer this question. And see, one of the, I would call it, these are the key drivers, right? So we got to make sure that there are few elements, right, that are there to ensure that our graduates are equipped for the future of work, right? So putting discipline-based knowledge in the curriculum is no longer enough. Yeah, for example, if you go for a computer science program, well, I think it's fine. We'll teach you how to do program, we'll teach you development. Since Vic is here, we'll teach you how to do a no-code or low-code, development. That's fine, that's discipline. But what is also more important is, to make sure that the graduates who come out, can thrive. And with that, we're going to make sure that in the curriculum we have a few, skills. I personally call it human skills. People call it, skills for the future of work. So things like self-leadership, right, is so important. Things like interpersonal skills, right? Things like cognitive abilities. Because what you learn, in university today, especially in computing, once you get out 3 years from now, it may look at different landscapes. So cognitive skills is so important. And I'm always reminded of one of my favorite authors, the late Alvin Toffler. So he mentioned that the illiterate of the 21st century, the illiterate of today are not people who can't read or write. The illiterate of today will be the people who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn.
I love that. That
Right.
is so priceless.
So cognitive abilities, we got to teach graduates how to learn by themselves, right? Okay. So these are, to me, these are cross-cutting themes which we must have in curriculum, right? And in a lot of universities, we have seen that, well, how do you teach leadership? Let's have a course or subject in leadership. It just doesn't work that way. You can't teach leadership in class. So the challenge then is how do we incorporate in classroom learning and outside of classroom learning to make sure that students have these skills, right? So these are what I call cross-cutting themes which must be there in curriculum, must be measured, right? In addition to your discipline skills, like whether you're an engineer or you are, a computer scientist, right? And I was just talking to Vic, down there on the floor, and what is so important these days, university got to catch up with what is out there. And these days people are talking about ESG, right? People are talking about EDI, your equity, diversity, and inclusion, right? So we got to find a framework to put that into a curriculum, because the next time when you come out, the graduates, are going to apply to a company and they will just ask, what do you know about ESG, right? Because landscapes are changing. So you got to make sure that elements such as these are incorporated in the curriculum, right? And let me get to the, so now if you want to see, well, if you ask, well, how do we actually do this, right? What would the curriculum look like? So to me, the curriculum of future is one that is fluid, right? You got to put your basic skills there, that's fine, okay? But what is so important these days is also, remember, students of today aren't like us when we were studying 30 years ago, where, the school will just say, this is your program plan for 3 years, you got to follow it from day one until you graduate, right? So students these days, they want choices. So we got to balance skills which are required in industry versus, options, choices. So a fluid curriculum will allow a student to, for example, if I'm computing, right, I may want to take, let's say, a minor in psychology, right? So these are the skills that allow students to thrive out there, interdisciplinary skills, right? I could take computing, for example, with a bit of accounting, right? So that is giving an interdisciplinary flavor to the curriculum, which I think is lacking, but it is important. And thirdly, which is also important, is that we got to give some what I call technically is called free electives, right? So for students who, let's say, want to build up a career in data center management, so we can take a series of, let's say, certifications from AWS or whichever vendor, right? Or for the purpose of, let's say, low code or no code, right? I want to take some certifications, let's say, from our systems or whatever. So we got to give that options and choice for students to see where are the strengths and their preferences. So I would say the curriculum of future got to be, have all these cross-cutting themes, your basic discipline skills, plus options and choices for students, guided, okay? We don't have an empty page where the students can choose anything and then it become what we call rojak, right? So, yeah, so in a way, a lot of things, we can be very excited, and in terms of regulatory, I think we can do that, right? We even have, students where, my university doesn't offer this course, but I can go to another university or Coursera just to take the course and transfer over. So this is flexibility and, fluidity. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. Every time you said something, I had a question, and then you answered it, so that's why I just kept nodding there. I like what you say about fluid curriculum. I have a 7-year-old nephew whose classes are structured in a way where he chooses what he wants to learn. And one of his classes was a coding class. So there I am, auntie in 30-something age. I'm learning coding with him, because it was very interesting, and this is the future that we're developing. So thank you so much for being one of our educators. With someone like you there, I have greater assurance that our future is secured. So moving on to the industry part of our Triple Helix, I have to share with you, my undergrad 20 years ago was in biotech, studied overseas, but when I came back, I couldn't find a job in the field. So it kind of makes me question my choice 20 years ago. But my question for you, Vic, is how do you, as an industry expert, establish your organization's talent pipeline? Do you work closely with institutions? How do you partner with local institutions? How do you partner with overseas institutions? I'd love to know a bit more how you and your organization think.
So thank you. Is it working? Yeah, all right. So just like yourself, I wanted to do accounting, ended up doing software engineering, right? So how it turns out to be. But to the one point that I kind of picked up earlier was the fluid, or in my terms, I always like to preach the agility, the agile. In today's, I'll come back to the question that you raised, but where I'm getting to is, while what Prof said that you are doing, as an example, a computer science, at the same time, how nice will you have another skill or expertise on accounting, finance, or economic, whatever not? Because today, as to the point where you're asking the industry needs, it's just not a digital talent, and also they need an industry subject matter expert. A combination of both will be great, right? So we realize multiple gray areas today, right? Talent shortage always been there. That's what Nick said, and we are trying to address that. But more importantly, OutSystem Malaysia, or from the previous companies that I've worked with, right, across Malaysia, across the region, what we are seeing is there's always a very quick turnaround, getting resources from other countries and regions, and how do we really have this in-house in Malaysia, right, to always advocate, always upskilling them, or always getting them a better progress. These are the key elements, right? So in specific to what we do today is we provide a technology platform, right, which comes to the topic of digital talent. What is digital talent in a very broad manner is, today they look at flexibility of working environment or working culture or working from home, as an example. Some of them do not even go to office at all. Or so these are the things that people are looking at, that They want a good work-life balance while they are also enjoying what they are really accomplishing with their job. It's just not about the skill set, just not about the outcomes. It comes from top down of the company itself, right? Drives talent to be loyal, which decades ago, of course, we see talents being there for 10, 20 years. These days, 1, 2 years, as an example, right? So how do you drive this? It's just not one thing or two things. Agility, having multiple skill sets. That will be an amazing thing. I really love that point. Because sometimes when our customers, right, like our platform is industry agnostic. We have clients who uses from financial sectors, from telecommunications, from government agencies, from energy, utility, oil and gas. There are developers. There are talents needed. How nice if you have that additional subject matter expertise of, let's say, on the financial side or the supply chain side, and exposure to multiple other technology sets out there. IoT, blockchain that Ray and Vincent was talking earlier, right? A lot of spectrum of things. Am I taking too much of time? No?
Never. Information's always good.
So just to summarize that point is, the key point is we need to be agile ourselves, right? As a company, as a person that we are planning to hire, the customer's needs today, right? We need to be flexible enough to make them, right, give them an opportunity. Whatever that we have to upskill in our systems, all publicly available for free, as an example. Most of the international technology vendors are providing that. So students are, let's say, fresh graduates, so they want to take it up. It's already made available, right? To upskill themselves further, certified, or get a better structure. They can always work with universities like APU and so on. So there's always a journey. There's always not a one single rule, but it's always about mindset, right? Just like I always like to talk about this example, how like my 80-year-old dad still walks into a bank to do his banking transaction. My 77-year-old mom uses Maybank to you in a mobile app, as an example. There's two, even though not much of an age, but difference, but you see how agile things can be, right?
I think maybe because she's a woman and very, I'm just kidding.
I would not deny that. But again, just a perspective on that, all right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. I want to go back to Nick. Now you've heard the university and the industry, and the same theme I hear, which is agility, fluidity, making sure that the skills cuts across sections. So how does a big agency like MDEC ensure that you're able to take what the university is trying to institute into our future generation, and also what the industry is looking for? How do we at MDEC ensure that this is part of what we preach? How do we ensure that it's not your traditional, government's known for that kind of stereotype? But I know that MDEC doesn't live by stereotype. You challenge convention. So how do you institute that?
Hello. So yes, definitely agility, fluidity is something that we try to preach to all our partners. So in this sense, I think because of our long-standing work that we do in this arena, we have been recognized by the relevant ministries, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Higher Education. So, for example, the Ministry of Higher Education, they have recently rolled out this new framework. They call it the Excel framework. So within this Excel framework, it's like an embodiment of fluidity. They're trying to embed this fluidity into the university curriculum and delivery structure. So within Excel, there are 4 tracks. One is emphasizing on industry experience. So they try to expose the students from year one to the industry, and even in some cases, either the full 1 year of the student is based at industry. So this is really embedding, getting the industry into the learning experience. So by the time the students graduate, they are ready to straight away jump into the industry, right? And they also have the 3 other tracks. One is on the focusing on research. One is focusing on CSR type of activities. So and one is on like entrepreneurship and all that. So I think we have managed to work with the ministry to embed all this into the curriculum delivery. So I think to that extent, the ministry have responded and they have recognized the need for them to change. But having said that, it's impossible to, you know, really make the student like industry ready at day one. I think through this they have shortened the learning period of the students from, let's say, 6 months into maybe 1 month, like that. So the industry still need to play their role.
Of course.
And be ready to accept and you know, embed and culture the students into their fold.
Great. Thank you so much. It's an everyday effort, right? It doesn't stop there. You can only build the foundation, but like Dr. Ho said, the illiterate of today are those who are not able to learn, unlearn, and relearn, and I think that's a great ethos in this day and age. I've just got one more question, which I'd like to ask both Dr. Ho and Vic before we go to Q&A. Ladies and gents, don't forget, earlier our MC mentioned that you should key in your questions for our panelists onto the Slido iPad, and I'll ask that in a couple of minutes. But before we get there, Dr. Ho and Vic, a couple of months ago, there was a real big kerfuffle about Brain Drain 2.0. And in your respective sectors, the university that's producing our students who are leaving and the industry who's, they claim, not ready or don't have the space for them. How do you feel we can circumvent this Brain Drain 2.0 that is happening? How do we ensure that great talent either is retained in Malaysia or comes back to Malaysia so that we can build this nation together? I direct this question to both of you, whoever would like to go first.
Yeah, of course, from the higher ed perspective, you know, we think of ourselves as producing talent, whether for the country or for the world, for that reason. Of course, we love it if, you know, our talents can stay back in Malaysia and work. But you know, I think after the pandemic, the way how we do work have changed, right? I was just you know, having this talk with Nick just before here, and we see a lot of companies, for example, in the US or even in Europe, allowing people to work in Malaysia online remotely. So how attractive is that? You know, so the question is that, are we competitive enough to attract talents to work with, you know, companies who are here in Malaysia? Because, you know, it is free trade, right? So this is something which is challenging, and because of that, as you said, we have a brain drain, right? And how we wish there are more students coming into our system, right? And one of the challenges which I think we face and we get questions from students is that look at international students, right? Recently, if you read in papers, some countries have loosened up their rules for international students who can stay back to work. In Malaysia, it is a bit difficult to do that. So we have a lot of good international students, good talents coming to the country, right? We train them, they're good. And when they graduate, they go back, right? We are not able to tap into this group of people for the country, for our country, to develop our country, while other nations are doing that. So I think that is from another perspective, right? So I don't have the answer as to how to arrest the brain drain. What is good is that you know, if our graduates are able to get employment in many places, that shows that we are producing good talents, right? But do consider our international students who are already here on our shore. They are good talents as well.
So
right?
retaining
Yeah.
that talent, the international
exactly.
talent that's come in. Thanks, Dr. Ho. Vic, from your perspective, and if I understand you want to show some slides after.
So thanks. So the thing is, even I asked myself, right, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was part of this industry, right, when I would love to go overseas and work, exposure. It's a good thing, right? But how do we ensure there's no talent shortage here or the expertise here, right? And perhaps I would like to just kind of go through with a slideshow. Let me know if you can see the screen. Is it being presented? No?
Can we get some help to ensure that the slide is projected up here?
Beautiful. Can see right now?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
all
we
right.
can.
So as you can see from this slide, we are working with a bigger consortium on OutSystem Malaysia education program, right? The more important is about, you can see it's written on a rate highlighted, preparing tomorrow's tech leaders today, in the conjunctions of tackling the talent shortage. So we are working on this program with MDEC, MITE, Sarawak Energy, Petronas, and tech alliances like FPT and AWS, as to not only get them trained, certified, but also getting a job placement. That is the key outcome that we are looking at, right? Of course, the program, it is being customized, is being offered to the fresh university graduates at the moment as a phase 1 that we're looking at to kick it off. There'll be multiple other phases that will be coming up for, let's say, women in coding or a single mom and whatever not. Let's say in US, what we have done is coding for black women as an example, or single moms, and multiple other perspectives. But just to summarize quickly, there are step-by-step for students to get enrolled as they go through multiple stages, and this we take it very seriously. So stage 1, you can see, they do not, it can come from different faculty, not necessarily from computer science. You can come from psychology or engineering or anything. And you build the first app with us immediately on a low-code platform. And that will entice or tells you, the students as an example, oh, this is something that I'm interested or I'm not interested, as an example. We do not want to waste time. For those who really think, oh, this is my next big thing, they go to stage 2, which is a self-paced online learning, right, with a coach. And after they complete it, building serious applications, like how MDEC and our customers have built thus far, right? And once they go through this, so this, why we do such a phase? Because it shows commitment from our students, right? That's the key. And they appear for the exam. For those who have successfully passed the exam, which is a OutSystem Reactive Developer Certificate, they will be given an interview, a job, placement, or internship program immediately. All right? So just to summarize, before that, this is something that I want to give a shout out to MDEC, that how MDEC have leveraged working together with OutSystems. Saya Digital or MD Malaysia Digital Platform was rebuilt from ground up in 7 days, Saya Digital. And Malaysia Digital was done on just within 4 months. So that was a record breaking, which initially was a year or two old kind of a project. So I wanted to know that we are serious about the student program, who are capable. Our customers, our partner ecosystem in this country, in other regions, are needing such talents, and we are there to support. For those who are interested, please sign up and share with your wider network. Yeah, more than happy to take more details after the event. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Vic. So we've got the QR code up on screen, or no more? Well, there you go, it's back. If you would like to get more information, do open up your smartphones and scan the QR code. In the meantime, Shani, do we have any questions on Slido? We're at the 4-minute mark at the moment.
Yes, we do. The iPad is coming to you now. We've got 3 or 4 questions, but most of them seem to be centered on the retention of talent.
Thank you so much. I went from analog to digital immediately. Okay, we've got a few questions here. I've got 4 minutes. I'll do my best to address them to our panelists. So this is a question I'd also like to ask, mostly because I know what's being done. Let's have this addressed to you, Nick. There's no names here, so everyone's gone anonymous. The question is, what has MDEC done so far to make sure inclusivity and diversity is one of the important factors in talent development?
Yes, so as part of our initiative, whenever we run our program, we always make sure that we try to cover all the various levels of people that we have in Malaysia. Because, for example, when we work with universities, we not only work with the public universities, but we also work with private universities. Because the diversity, the different type of students in both types of universities are quite diverse. So in our programs, we make sure that we cover both sectors. And when we work with the schools, we also make sure that we go to all states in Malaysia, and we are cognizant of, in our program, we make sure that we try to cover all the B40s as well. And we also have a specific intent or trust to make sure that the people that we touch in terms of gender equity is there as well. So we make sure that students are both female and male and all that. And not only that, in terms of developing the lecturers as well, the teachers, we make sure that we cover everyone. So if you go to even places in Sabah, we have our Cikgu Juara Digital, also in Sabah, and Cikgu Juara Digital is like our ambassador. So they speak on our behalf to the general population. So we make sure this Cikgu Juara Digital, we have from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups and all that. So we cover all those as well. And when we even dealing with because apart from this talent for the industry, we also touch the general public as well. So in those general public, in the Saya Digital portion, we cover all ethnic backgrounds as well, all states, so that all Malaysians have equal access to the digital tech. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. And also just to add in on that, I know that MDEC's, in terms of the beneficiaries, over 55% are women, in terms of your participation, as well as the beneficiaries itself. And MDEC has set up an ESG policy and also signed up with UN Women's Empowerment Pledge, if I'm not mistaken. So I know for a fact that they are very active in the DEI space. The rest of the questions, actually, very interestingly, are all worries about brain drain. Specifically with regards to competing against Singapore, and what are we doing or what can be done to ensure that the currency depreciation doesn't make us lose more talent? I'm going to let both the gentlemen, whoever would like to speak up first, manage this. The question is 2 things. One is, how do we stay competitive against countries like Singapore, and how do we manage this currency issue that would probably encourage our young ones to leave? And then we'll wrap up the session.
I'll let Vic handle the hard one, but I just want to highlight that in many higher eds today, students are more and more exposed to entrepreneurship. So there is a group, there are students, who have this passion to do something impactful, becoming an entrepreneur. So I think we are doing quite well in terms of the ecosystem to encourage these sort of students to build themselves to entrepreneurs. So these are this group of students who probably will not go anywhere else. They want to focus on building their enterprises here, and when they're successful, they will expand overseas. So I think this is another facet that we got to look at, other than looking at creating talents for industry, but creating people who can create jobs. We got to nurture this group of people, and I believe these are some of them are very bright. They want to do something useful. They just don't want to, work for a large corporation and so on. So we do have this group of students, and we got to make sure that we put in the right facilitation, the right incentives for them to stay and grow their business. So I think this is one aspect that we got to work on, to avoid. So they will not be draining. They will be here creating opportunities. So let's develop this group of people as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. So Vic, he left you with the tough one. How do we stay competitive against Singapore? If there's any Singaporeans here, sorry, but we got to do what we got to do.
Again, this is just my perspective. If you have an opportunity in Singapore or any other countries, right, go for it. Get the exposure, get the experience, get the money, whatever that entices you. Come back. Give it back to the community. Give it back to the country, right? And trust me, we have the new generations studying in UK or different part of the world. They're getting jobs there from multinational companies. And I talk to their parents, and they say they will come back after 5 years getting experience. Of course, the currencies, today when you talk about specific to currency, there's no specific answer to it, right? If money is what entices you, please go for it. But you have to always have a long-term, short-term, mid-term kind of a thought process. Really, if you want to work in different countries, you want to migrate, that's a totally different topic altogether. But if you look at what exactly entices you, I did work in other regions. I came back. I try to provide back value here, driving this such education program from Malaysia together with a bigger consortium. That's what excites me. So we need to look at the bigger perspective for the new generations. Yeah, it's always not about money, work-life balance, digital talent, as we spoke about. What does really entices you? What can you really deliver? Like what Prof. and Nick said, it's about when you're working for a company and the culture fits you, the work-life balance fits you, the kind of flexibility fits you, and among a lot of other things, right? You got to have that plan and work backwards towards it. I'm not saying not to go for it, come back.
Thank you so much. So with that note about coming back to develop the nation, thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts and perspective on this very important topic on talent development. Thank you, ladies and gents, for affording us that extra few minutes beyond the timer that has gone off. Shani, back to you.
Thank you so much, Izana. And of course, thank you so much to our panelists, Vic, Professor Dr. Ho, and Nick Naharuddin, for your insightful comments. I managed to actually round up so much information from that, which I will share with you in just a bit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. A big round of applause to our moderator and our panelists. Now, if you have any feedback on this session, we'd love to hear from you. Please do scan the QR code on screen that we're going to put up right now and help us improve by sharing your thoughts via a quick survey. All right, allow me to quickly summarize the session for you, ladies and gentlemen, before we dive into our next topic. Now, our triple helix, consisting our 3 experts here representing academia, the government, and the industry, spoke about what was needed to ensure Malaysia has the sufficient supply of digital talent to match the growing needs of the digital economy. So, the data has shown that there are more than enough vacancies, so jobs are available, and there is also enough supply, with Penang, Johor, Malacca, and Ipoh showing that they have relative higher supply of digital talents against demand, okay? So it's not really a shortage that we're dealing with here. The main challenge is actually ensuring the talents are sufficiently competent to meet the needs of the industry, and that Malaysia is able to retain those talents from Malaysian industries. So several MDEC initiatives such as GLOW, Global Online Workforce, and My Digital Workforce were aimed at matching digital freelancers with employers facing a labor shortage while reskilling talents with the right competencies currently needed by employers. And of course, from academia, the goal of higher education now must shift to ensuring the right talents are sufficiently trained to start jobs being industry ready. So the Tech Expert Network has been advising what content needs to go into the courses, while universities have also been including soft skills, ESG, and free electives as a natural evolution of tertiary education. Finally, on retaining talent, our panelists shared that actually encouraging digital entrepreneurship amongst graduates will help retain them here while also creating local jobs. And secondly, that global exposure is good, but the challenge is to attract those talents to come back to the country. And it's not just about money, it's about the quality of life and culture that Malaysia has to offer as well. So lots of things to process and think about as we move into our next session today. I hope you enjoyed that session, ladies and gentlemen. Our panelists are still here, so if you do have other things you wish to ask them about our talent mismatch and what we can do to help with that, please do feel free to meet them here in the hall. All right, ladies and gentlemen, up next for our next session, panel session 12. Rapid rise of data center investment in Malaysia, capitalizing on the shifting regional landscape to become a regional leader. Now, over the last 2 years, Malaysia has seen a remarkable increase in data center investments. Despite the competitive regional landscape, Malaysia has managed to capture the attention of global data center players due to a number of factors. Number one, infrastructure readiness, energy capacity, ease of doing business in Malaysia, and also government facilitation. In this next session, our panelists will discuss how Malaysia can leverage on this advantage and, most importantly, stay on top. So if you have any questions for our panelists for this session here, do check into Slido now using the QR code. We're going to pop up on the screen again and post up those questions for our panelists to answer later on during the Q&A. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce our moderator for this session, Justin Hayes, Head of Malaysia and Philippines Market for W Media. Hello, Justin. Yes, please, go ahead. I'm just going to quickly introduce Justin. Now, W Media, which is where Justin works, is a multifaceted data center content distributor. As head of the Malaysia and Philippine markets, Justin uses his knowledge of both markets, as well as developments within the industry, to connect IT professionals with vendors in the data center, cloud, and cybersecurity sectors, most notably by organizing the largest cloud and data center conventions in both Malaysia and the Philippines. So Justin, over to you.
Yes, welcome everyone to the panel. We have a number of really interesting topics to talk about today and a number of fantastic speakers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead straight away and jump into it and invite onto the stage my fellow panelists so we can get started. So please welcome to the stage Tan Ziming from MDEC. John Eves, of course, from Edge Centres. Oh, right, okay, we've got pictures up there. Adila Junid from Microsoft. Sit under. And Mr. Han Yo from YTL. Okay, and I think we were all matching to our pictures now. Welcome everyone to the panel. Is everyone's microphone working, first of all, just to check?
I think so.
Hello.
Yes. Good.
Yep.
In that case, I will hop on to the first question of the panel. We've written down a few of them and we'd like to go through them and see what everyone's thoughts are. So the first one is, in the shifting regional landscape, what makes the data center industry in Malaysia appealing for investment? And what can we do within this industry to increase this appeal to become a regional lead potential? So Zuming, I'd like to start with you. Could you talk from the government facilitation point of view?
All right. Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Zuming. So I'm from the Technology Verticals business unit under the Investment Facilitation Department in MDEC. So my team is basically the team that specializes in the data center industry. We've been facilitating data center investments since 10 to 12 years ago. So we basically have a better understanding of the data center industry than pretty much any other agency in Malaysia. I said, when we do understand data centers, it's not just about data centers as a business, but what are the enablers for data centers as well. So for example, for data center to operate, you need at very minimum two things, power and connectivity. So these are two things that can be challenging depending where you are. So MDEC's role in this area is to facilitate your access to energy as well as connectivity, plus any other thing that requires our help. So for example, you have problems acquiring land for your data center. If you have problems getting permitting for the deployment of fiber, any problem, feel free to come talk to us. That's what we do.
And speaking of, because you mentioned power, obviously, from an energy point of view, I'd like to ask Han his thoughts on how we can make Malaysia more appealing in that sense.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe it helps for us to all have an introduction first before we kind of dive into, so that we can give some context of what we're doing. So I'm Executive Director of YTL Power. We are one of Malaysia's largest conglomerates and infrastructure groups. So, we started off as an independent power producer. So the background from us is kind of in the energy space. But now we're building, what is the region's largest data center park. So we've acquired 2,000 acres of land in Johor, and we're building 500 megawatts of power, renewable energy, solar power, to power 500 megawatts of data center capacity. And this is just 26 kilometers from Singapore. So in terms of what we're doing and why we see Malaysia as being very interesting for investors is the fact that we're in Singapore and we produce 26% of their electricity. So we have 3,000 megawatts, 3,100 megawatts there. And all our customers come to us and they ask us for renewable energy. And this has been happening for the last 4-5 years. And Singapore is constrained in that regard, but Malaysia is not. So the first thing that Malaysia has is the fact that Malaysia has an abundance of land, resources, and renewable energy. And on top of that, I think we've got great infrastructure. So we've got great grid, we've got great roads, and I think Malaysia is the natural destination for a lot of these hyperscalers who are looking to venture out and spill out of Singapore.
Thank you very much, Han. And Adila, if you'd like to introduce yourself and then obviously give a little bit of insight from a data governance and policy point of view.
Thank you, Justin, and thanks very much. So I'm Adila, and I'm the Director for Legal and Government Affairs for Microsoft in Malaysia. And yeah, I agree. I mean, Microsoft made a decision to invest in its first data center region in Malaysia with its Bersama Malaysia commitment, recognizing the potential of Malaysia. And I think Malaysia's taken a great step by articulating that aspiration, right? It wants to be the regional leader in the digital economy, and it's got these targets on how much the digital economy should contribute, wanting to be a center for innovation, to cultivate and incubate startups. So having that vision in the first place is a great thing. And we do also have key building blocks in place. We have a data protection law, and as with any law and policy, this can be improved, and I think we recognize that. And so I understand that revisions to raise the level of policy and regulatory protection for making Malaysia an attractive place from the perspective of the digital economy. That's underway. And we also recognize, so Microsoft recognized that Malaysia also has a great talent pool. So one of the things that we are doing, in addition to doing the data center investment, is investing in the talent. We've made a commitment to skill 1 million Malaysians over the next 3 years, and we've actually achieved over 60% of that now. So that's another great driver of the potential ability for Malaysia to be that regional leader in the digital economy. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. And John, obviously as the, the Australian in the room, we wanted to know your thoughts on from an investment point of view, why Malaysia in that sense to start?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm John Eaves. I'm the CEO and founder of Edge Centres. We started off as an Australian business, and our first expansion outside of Australia was into Malaysia. My investment was slightly different. My primary investor was a Malaysian family. So I was brought here, albeit with capability, which is obviously one of the key aspects. And I'd like to reiterate what you said around staffing, that the level of staff we get in Malaysia for technical is equal to, and if not greater than, the surrounding ASEAN countries. So the capability here, which is why we chose Malaysia for our network operations center and security operations center, will be based for the whole of ASEAN outside of KL in Shah Alam, where our first Edge data center was completed.
Well, thank you very much, John. And then now I've got some individual questions that I'm sort of going to target at each of the panelists. I'll start with Ziming. With companies adopting digitalization, the introduction of 5G, and shifts in focus across the region from Singapore to other leading countries, what challenges does Malaysia face in meeting the rising demand for data centers?
That's a very good question. So the biggest challenge is basically it's a spike. It's something that basically started in 2021. For 10 years, we've been working on all the challenges. We basically understood that there were a lot of challenges that we needed to fix. So we spent the last 10 years taking care of those challenges. But as the spike of influx of data centers coming in suddenly in 2021, it presented a major challenge in terms of power requirements, right? So I think some of you may already know that Cyberjaya, the heart of the digitization in Malaysia, is very close to reaching its maximum capacity of power supply. So we are actually looking at constructing a new main intake unit for Cyberjaya just to cope with these large-scale data centers coming in. So responding to power requirements in local areas is a major challenge right now. Because data centers tend to cluster together, so everyone wants to be in Cyberjaya in Klang Valley. It's when they can't get something in Cyberjaya, then they start looking elsewhere. Similarly, in Johor, the 3 or 4 data center investment zones like STEP, as well as YTL's site, as well as Nusa Jaya Tech Park. The ones that have been around a while, basically they are also facing power capacity issues. It's a local issue. So we are hoping that YTL will take up the slack and provide lots more power where you are and give Johor room to grow. So those are the 2 biggest challenges, actually.
Wait, can I just add that we have no power capacity issues, so.
That's good to hear.
Well, I was initially going to hand over to Adila, but actually there's a question that will sort of follow on with this, given that Ziming's already mentioned YTL. So I'll hop over to Han just quickly and ask, energy is the largest cost component of a data center operation. And the recent announcements of hyperscale data centers investment indicate that Malaysia will continue to attract more hyperscale facilities. In your opinion, what does Malaysia need to do right in order to take the lead in terms of energy sustainability?
Well, I think the country is doing quite a lot to encourage the development of renewable energy sources. So I think that's great. The elephant in the room is the fact that actually the government, the energy sector is a monopoly. In fact, we have a big GLC called TNB who is the distributor, generator in many cases, and also owns the transmission line, right? And this is not a true liberalization. And this, unfortunately, this doesn't create much competition. So one of the things that we look at as someone who wants to provide a full stack service is the fact that we need to be able to provide on-demand renewable energy direct to our customers, and we need to be able to show that it has been generated through renewable energy sources. So in Malaysia right now, I mean, I think plans have been announced, and I think it could be done a bit faster if we could kind of get, well, how do you say, be able to buy energy directly for industries directly from renewable energy sources. I think that will be a huge game changer. It's something that you can already do in other countries. And if Malaysia can do this, where Singapore cannot because you don't have the renewable energy capacity, then that's going to be a big thing for Malaysia. So a lot of it is policy and the speed of implementing those policies. And when that comes through, I think there will be a huge boost to this entire industry in this country.
Well, thank you very much. And just on a different note, I'm going to turn back to Adila because that was where my next question was. From a data privacy, governance and sovereignty continues to be an ongoing concern for any data center and cloud players entering the country. How can Malaysia improve in these areas to appeal more to DC and cloud players to come in?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Justin. So I think the discussion is moving really from issues like sovereignty and localization to having the right protections, security, and control over your data. So Malaysia has a good baseline. We've got a data protection law, and we've articulated that aspiration to be a regional lead, as I mentioned. And recently, we've ratified the CPTPP, which is great. That sort of shows our commitment to openness in terms of, for example, facilitating e-commerce through enabling cross-border data flows. I think there's a huge opportunity here for Malaysia to really give that extra confidence to players in the digital economy, that Malaysia is a region that has world-class data protection laws and all the attendant sort of rules and implementation mechanisms to raise it to that level where it can be best in class in terms of a place where you can digitally transact, knowing that your data is safe, secure, and there are adequate protections. So the amendments to the data protection laws, for example, those are much welcome. They introduce things like having mandatory breach notification, so that's on par with international standards, having obligations for data processors. This is what I understand. I think one area where we could really improve in terms of that transparency and confidence to people who want to transact here is in terms of having commitments to law enforcement access to the data center, recognizing that the data center is actually storing customers' data, customers who have customers. It's businesses' data, it's data of companies. So that really should be under the control of that business. And so access to a data center really should be seen through that lens, on par with how what's considered best practice. In fact, the OECD recognizes this, that sort of commitment by governments to respect and protect data that's in their environment is actually very critical to enabling growth of digital economy. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I'll just move on to John, because I have a question which is, within the scope of rise of investment in data centers in Malaysia, how can edge data centers support and grow the industry?
Thank you, Justin. I'd like to start by echoing what Han said around monopolies and power. I worked for a monopoly in Dubai, and it was counterintuitive to the growth of the country there because without, ESG is a very key driver for data centers, and especially, with green loans being commissioned now. AirTrunk successfully raised 1.2 billion through ASG-based loans. That without that availability to green power, a facility, I think we're going to retard the industry rather than advance it. And we ourselves, although we purchase coal power in Malaysia, we have to use carbon offsets from our solar in Australia to ESG our power here. So yeah, I do echo, and I do wish you the best of luck in that endeavor. For Malaysia, I mean, look, we're the opposite of a hyperscale. We're micro. Our sites aren't 100 megawatts or 500 megawatts. We're talking about 150 kilowatts of IT load. But obviously, our goal is to have around 20 to 30 edge locations throughout Malaysia and obviously East Malaysia as well. to empower the 1 to 2 millisecond low latency workload required, but inevitably they still feed back to a hyperscale. They still, as we have worked, will require the assistance of MDEC. So for us, the opportunity in Malaysia is big, and I agree that, you know, the opportunity outside of outside of Singapore for Malaysian facilities is ripe for Malaysia to become that next key hub in ASEAN.
Thank you very much. And I'll move back to Zuming. Given the influx of investment from global companies into the Malaysian data center, what should local data center companies focus on to remain competitive? What should the industry do to ensure a retention and a growth in local talent?
All right, since actually MDEC is not a data center operator, so I'm not sure whether I'm the right person to answer that question, but I'll try to give it a shot. I think if you look at some of the players in Malaysia, they are basically changing their business model to basically become the service providers for the hyperscalers. So when the hyperscalers come in, usually they will set up in an edge node and set up in a colo facility rather than build something from day one. So this has actually spurred the domestic data center market. A lot of players are actually becoming the hosts for this, the influx of new players. But knowing some of them are going to expand their footprints into their own constructed facilities, I'm guessing that the local players will actually start finding this challenging. But what we have heard so far is typically the hyperscalers, when they move into a facility, they typically don't shut it down. They leave it running because their capacity growth is higher than the ability to build it out. So that's what we are hearing in the market right now. So I think if any of you here are from the local industry, I think when you hear your customers building their own facility, it doesn't mean they're going to leave your facility. They're probably going to continue. So I think what would be best for the local players to figure out is how do you continue to become useful to an incoming investor, right? Because your experience in the local market, your knowledge of the local ecosystem is vital to helping these companies set up in the country. And you'll find a niche in there somewhere. I think it could be that you're not competing with them in terms of selling floor space, but maybe pivot your business to providing technical services to these guys. Right? That's my opinion.
Well, thank you. And the time has slightly changed on the screen, so I'll just ask to...
We lost 6 minutes. Who took the 6 minutes?
So actually, I think we can... I'm just looking at my questions now, seeing which ones are going to fit in the time. I should probably pose a question to all of you, and then we should be able to wrap up from there in that sense, which is, as a goal to become a regional leader within the data center industry, it's all very good saying that as Malaysia, but what targets should be set as indicators of progress in terms of where Malaysia can innovate and to capitalize on its current position? Sort of milestones as to what we should be looking at if we're going to take that role. I'll work down in order. Harun, I'd like to start with you, if that's okay.
Okay. I'm not sure whether it's right to kind of look at milestones, but when we looked at this space, we saw a lot of kind of blue ocean in the fact that there's so much demand in Singapore. And it just could not be fulfilled within Singapore. We saw that there was a moratorium. These hyperscalers have been our power customers for a long time. They've been asking for power. They've been asking for capacity. We bought Dodit, which is a data center in Singapore, and that kind of reinforced our view. So 3 years ago, we decided to invest heavily in Malaysia, and we wanted to do something that was at scale, that was ambitious, that would change how people looked at Malaysia as a data center hub. And so that's why we acquired 2,000 acres of land, and we wanted to build our own solar farm to power 100% 500 megawatts of renewable energy, and it had to be near Singapore. And why we could do that was because we're an infrastructure provider, so we are an IPP, so we sell energy as a core business. We have a telecommunications arm, Whitetail Communications, which is the 4th largest telco in Malaysia. So we can do our own fiber. We have our own data centers already. They're already operating. We have a construction arm, which is the 2nd largest in Malaysia. We can build our own data centers, and so we can provide an end-to-end solution for the hyperscale customers, and that's what I feel they were looking for. So we hope that this is something that would really bring Malaysia onto the map. I think it's generated quite a lot of excitement. Johor is now becoming a base, but then the question is, you know, from a milestone perspective, what next? So we see Malaysia within the ASEAN region is very strategically located. Just like in Singapore, we're right in the heart of everything. And how can we then better facilitate this? We need better connectivity. We won't need to make KL as a bigger hub. I think the government has done a great job in announcing, you know, the shift of government into cloud services that will drive more adoption. I think Microsoft is one of the cloud service providers there. And the other thing that is going to be a game changer for Malaysia is the fact that with Digital Nasional, we have we will now have the fastest rollout of 5G in Malaysia. Because we have one network which is being pushed out. The cost will be shared by 6 consumers, so the average cost of data in Malaysia should be the lowest in the region. And this actually is going to be a virtuous cycle where you have low costs, it becomes more attractive for investors, there'll be more innovation and more investment in 5G. And then the need for data centers should also increase. So I'm very bullish on Malaysia as a data center hub, and I think that we're just at the beginning. So yeah, I think that in the long run is going to be where Malaysia should keep focusing on.
Thank you. And Adila, from a governance standpoint?
So I'm going to go back to the regulatory and policy framework that makes Malaysia attractive, right? So I actually think we're starting from a relatively high base. We don't have any mandated, hard-coded localization laws in general. Having said that, it would be great if we could move from where we are right now, which is that generally permissive, and perhaps in some situations you do need to jump through a few hoops to make it where it's actually the benefits of adopting cloud and using data center capacity basically are so well known that that becomes the default position. Everybody should want to go to cloud, and it's only in very specific, restricted circumstances where maybe that should be questioned, and then maybe in that tiny little sliver of situation, so the default position becomes, it's cloud first really, default position becomes that data center capacity, cloud usage is the preferred option. So I think that's something. How we measure that in terms of milestones, I think the national blueprints already set out quite a few milestones. As you mentioned, there's 80% government cloud consumption. But what does that mean? What sort of consumption does that mean? How are you using the cloud? So hopefully, as we move towards that target of 2030, we can get a little bit more clearer on that. And yeah, happy to work private and public sector collaboration on these issues. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And John, from your perspective, obviously building across the region, how do you see Malaysia comparing and standing up and sort of moving forwards from that point?
I think, well, starting with milestones, our own internal KPI is to try and enable 100% local employment. So other than myself being a traveller, everybody else per country, so Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, they're all 100% Malay, 100% Thai, 100% Vietnam. So for us, it was very important that we empowered a country as well as assisting a country. So from a manpower point of view, but also digitally. How working in Malaysia has obviously been, we've had, I'll call it, less challenges here than starting in other countries. It's been a very clean. We've obviously had fantastic support from MDEC, and obviously, you know, we get invited to speak at events. But for us now, growing in this region, as I mentioned earlier, having our hub here, making Malaysia my home. I mean, I live here now. has been integral into our expansion throughout Asia by being based here. And, you know, as the lady from Air Asia, if she's still here, thank you for flying me.
And finally, Zooming, do you have any sort of goals or outlines that you have in your mind that you think would indicate progress?
Yes, actually we do. We have a list of issues that we need to fix. We are well aware what they are. We have been working on some of them for a few years, and they are making progress. So, you know, my milestones, which I can't reveal over here in a public forum, obviously, but we are progressing towards those targets. But I think in closing, I think I would like to say one just a story. In the 70s, right, there were two major car rental companies in the world, Avis and Hertz. And Hertz was number one. And Avis was at a point of losing a lot of money. They were having challenges being number two. So they came up with an advertising campaign with the tagline, "We try harder." And Malaysia, we know we are not number one in this region. So we are trying harder. All right, so I think that's all I want to say for now. Right. Thank you.
I think that's a lovely note to wrap up on. Do
We have a
any
couple of
questions?
questions actually for you, Justin, for you to ask our panelists. Would you like me to help you read them out? It's a bit difficult to see, I know.
I just realised the angle's not great, but
Yes.
I think I can give it a go. I can see the bottom one the most clearly. To any of the panelists who want to jump in,
We'll bring over an iPad for you, Justin.
will there be an oversupply of data centres in 5 years' time? Do you think we're going to overinvest and overbuild because of this projected growth?
Okay, I'll take that one. The answer is in 5 years, definitely not. We are just starting out. The guys who basically made announcements in 2021 haven't even started operating yet. So it's a little bit early to say we'll be in an oversupply situation. And by speaking to these investors, the guys who are actually spending money constructing in Malaysia, they are looking at a 20, 30-year deployment plan. And it doesn't look like they are stopping. So I don't think there's going to be a so-called oversupply. Data is growing every year. No, most people here don't delete photos from your phone, right? Once you take a photo, it's in there forever. It's going to live in the cloud. It's just going to grow, all right? So I don't think we'll ever reach to a point where say, that's too much, unless we run out of energy. Yes, all right? So that needs to grow in step. So I think Han has got the potential new business to grow as well, together with the data center industry.
And that's all we've got time for, I think, because the clock says 00. So thank you very much for joining us. And I'd like to once again thank my panelists, Han, Adila, John, and Zimin. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Justin, and of course our panelists for sharing your views. Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for Justin, Han Yo, Adila Junit, Jonathan Eves, and Tan Zuming. Now, I appreciate you sending in your questions. Not to worry, I think our panelists will still be hanging around a little bit for a short while. So if you have any questions for them, please do approach and see whether they're willing to answer, okay? I can't guarantee they'll answer, but try, okay? So thank you so much to our panelists. We welcome any feedback on this session, ladies and gentlemen. So please do scan the QR code that we're going to pop up on the screen and help us improve our digital week by sharing any thoughts you have via a quick survey. All right? All right, you may return to your seats, ladies and gentlemen. In the meantime, please allow me to quickly summarize that session that we had just now before we dive into our final topic for Breakout Room 2. Now, why Malaysia? Well, for YTL Power, Singapore is constrained in areas that Malaysia has in abundance, such as resources, land, infrastructure, and renewable energy. So Malaysia has a great talent pool, which for Microsoft is a great driver, and other global players like edge centers. Challenges for Malaysia include power supply capacity in areas like Cyberjaya, where capacity is currently being upgraded, and of course, energy costs. Now, energy is the largest cost component for data centers, so liberalizing the energy sector and focusing on renewable energy will help make energy rates more competitive and sustainable. What Malaysia can do better? Well, Malaysia needs to boost confidence to global players on data protection laws, data protection enforcement, and cybersecurity, which is actually, ironically, our next topic. To remain competitive, local players need to find a niche and consider pivoting to providing technical services rather than simply providing floor space. Finally, what will be the game changer for Malaysia as a data center hub? Malaysia is strategically located, so the government must consider how we can better facilitate connectivity coupled with the fastest rollout of 5G, with the average cost of data being the lowest in the region. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a quick wrap-up of panel 12, capitalizing on the shifting regional landscape of data centers to become a regional leader. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without taking up any more of your time so that we can all head for lunch in a short while, we'll close up with panel session 14, our final session in Breakout Room 2. We cannot talk digital economy without also looking closely into cybersecurity. As digitalization increasingly takes center stage for economies across the world, so too has the demand for safe and secure cyberspace. In this session, we'll dive into how prepared our National Cybersecurity Strategy, or MCSS, is to take on the challenges of a digital Malaysia, as well as the landscape for cybersecurity moving forward. Now, if you have any questions for this upcoming panel, please do scan the QR code and put in those questions during the session. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to chair panel 14, cybersecurity is the key enabler in accelerating Malaysia's digital economy. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome our moderator for this session, Victor Loh, Head of Cloud and Cybersecurity at MDEC. Victor is an experienced professional with more than 2 decades of information security and risk consulting experience, with a specialization in cyber threat intelligence frameworks across the South Asian region. At MDEC, Victor's key roles include driving cybersecurity as a catalyst for the digital economy and to promote collaboration and innovation within the cybersecurity ecosystem. Over to you, Victor.
Yes. Okay, good. Right, so can I invite all the panelists to be on the stage right now? Mr. Anand, Prof. Vinesh, and Puan Sharifah. Yeah, please. Maybe ladies in the middle then. Yeah. All right, so without further ado, I think is that this is one of the, I would say that most rigid and interesting topic before lunch. So I urge that probably pay a bit of attention. Probably at the end of the session, you get a voucher for lunch, right? If not, then it's okay. I think is that the whole purpose of this session, I would like to make sure that everyone enjoy the session very much, because this topic is very, very rigid, but nevertheless is that it's very important for the digital economy, right? In the aspect of cybersecurity space, I think for the last 20 years, right, all of us are pretty much aware that cybersecurity is an important element for any of the enterprises. But I think that lately, there has been a lot of learning that you learn from the news, is that it's not only important for the enterprise, but it's important for the country growth and especially the digital economy, right? So today is that it's my honor to invite 3 of our most well-known specialists or panel in the space of cybersecurity. Probably have quick introductions of yourself for 1 minute, then we jump to the topics, right? Maybe start with Mr. Anand.
Hi everybody. I'm Anand. I basically manage the regional sales for F-Secure here across 7 countries in the region. And as many of you know, F-Secure has been in Malaysia for a while now.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Sharifah Rashida. I'm from the National Cybersecurity Agency. I am in charge with the Chief Executive Office of NEXA to look into the coordination and implementations of cybersecurity strategy in Malaysia. Thank you.
Prof. Vinesh.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. My name is Vinesh. I'm currently the Chief Innovation and Enterprise Officer at Asia Pacific University. You would definitely know Asia Pacific University because you see them on all main roads and highways with a big billboard, yeah? We're a tech-based university. Yep. Happy to be on the board this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Prof. Vinesh and Puan Shefa and Mr. Anand. Welcome. Right, so to jump into the topics, I think is that, as I mentioned earlier, is that 20 years ago, the conversations of cybersecurity is very much enterprise conversations, right? Today, in any of the country dialogues between country to country or within the ministry and within the governmental conversations, that cybersecurity is a very, very key topic, right? So maybe is that we'll ask the first questions to the government's agencies that coordinate all this conversation together. Probably NACSA is the agencies that are looking after all this coordination of cybersecurity matters. Puan Shefa, you'll be able to share with the audience today is that, well, how do we understand cybersecurity from a national perspective, maybe?
Thank you, Victor. Let me start by just indicating that, as what Victor has mentioned, cybersecurity used to be an IT support issues. So, but now it's already elevated into a key fundamental of national security issues. One of the things that really indicated in our country that really moved the decisions that cybersecurity is no more an IT security issues and have shifted into national security issues when in 2004 at the United Nations in the first committee of disarmament actually indicated the development of a group of governmental expert group that says that any attacks to the critical infrastructure to a country can escalate it to the armed conflict. That was the discussions that actually established a group at the United Nations to speak about that. But at that moment, the shift of the world will look into the incidents of terrorism that was happening. Until the attack to Estonia, I think that most of us have heard the attack of Estonia in 2007, actually indicated that that is the truth. Actually, it can happen. In 2004, at the United Nations, when the decisions was, when the group was being established in Malaysia, a small nucleus group in National Security Council being established to look into this particular matter. And at that particular point of time, in 2004, the development of national cybersecurity policy at that particular point of time mostly was headed at that particular point of time, are looking into the protection of critical national information infrastructure. Fast forward, we have seen a lot of changes and more stakeholders come into the digital environment. The element of digital economy where we are speaking today, where cybersecurity is not only national security issues, it is also in parallel a reflections of how a country define its progress and its development in terms of economic and social. Hence, at national level, in NACSA, in National Security Council, the government actually established an entity at the government level with a national security alignment, so that any incidences that can escalate at national security incidences can be looked into both ways, which is where the economic value is being retained, as well as the issue of national security and sovereignty being looked at. One thing that I would like to emphasize as well is, at NACSA, we actually acknowledge the multi-stakeholder in the management of cybersecurity. Secondly, national security also look into cybersecurity as a technical issue, the underlying layer of how you solve a cybersecurity issue. But it is not just stopped there. It is also a national economic value issue, national security issues. But to some extent, if any incidences that happen can be attributed to a state actor, it needs the element of country as a sovereign state to indicate that to the United Nations so it can be escalated properly. So this is what we have seen. So, but the truth is, as the technology evolves, there are so many actors. There are nation-state actors, there are criminals, there are also hacktivism. So all these people actually have an ecosystem of criminals on their own, and they actually very organized. Hence why, in terms of managing cybersecurity at the national level, as far as what the policymakers are seeing that no government have all the answers. It needs to be a collaborative movement. It needs to be acknowledging the roles and responsibility of each other in the ecosystem of cybersecurity. Hence why one of the things that we really emphasize in our cybersecurity strategy with the first pillar, which is an effective governance, where only an effective governance will allow more conversations, more collaborations to indicate the right legislations and regulatory framework that needs to be done, to indicate the right research and development that needs to be invested, to indicate the right capacity and capability building in terms, as well as awareness that need to be focused on, and last but not least, to indicate the right elements and how actually our country navigate the international collaboration in terms of us to get the benefit of securing our cybersecurity as a whole in terms of national security, as well as maximize the opportunity that we have in digital economy in terms of getting more and more investment and benefits. I will stop there.
Investment, right? I think F-Secure as organizations that have already invested here in Malaysia, they are the pioneer in investing in Malaysia, choosing the locations, Malaysia as one of the largest office outside of Finland, right? And probably Mr. Anand is that, probably give us a bit of idea is that F-Secure as an organization for the last 20 years or 30 years, and the journey between that investment of Malaysia, where are you today and where are you heading to, maybe Mr. Anand?
Let me just sort of sum it up quickly. So F-Secure is a 34-year-old company. So we've been around, particularly in the cybersecurity space, for a long time now. Last year was very interesting for us because we decided to demerge companies into two entities. One is called F-Secure, the other one is called WithSecure. F-Secure as a company continues to concentrate on the consumer cybersecurity space, which is a B2B2C. That means end consumers benefit from the products that we have. The other thing on WithSecure is more on the enterprise side of things. So one of the things Juan was mentioning, security is very important, right, today. How do you sort of relate to security? From a security perspective, you are carrying supercomputers in your hands today. Most people think about it as phones, right? Cyber criminals don't need to come to your home to steal money. All they need is a password on your phone or access to your phone or to your digital bank account. Your banks are now in your phones. Everything that you do is digital. With COVID, we moved from an office environment to a home environment. In an office environment, you have protection. That means you have the experts in there, you have the cybersecurity guys, you have the IT guys to ensure that maximum security is available. What happens at home? Do you carry the same kind of security at home? Now, when you moved work home, your security was not there at all, right? Except for the device that was handed over to your company. Your children don't have any kind of security, your parents don't have any kind of security, or any family member. On an average, we see about 12 to 14 devices in a household, and none of them really have any kind of security at all. And cyber security, from a layman perspective, is changing. In fact, our chief risk officer, Mikko Hyppönen, was one of the first ones to report right as soon as the Ukraine war started. The attacks were coming on the cybersecurity side in a large way. Estonia is like a 2-hour boat ride from Finland or from Helsinki. So literally, you could actually see that as well. So from a company perspective, we are doubling down on investments here. Our CEO, with the new company, we've actually listed 2 companies now in the NASDAQ Helsinki. So we have created 2 gems in the company instead of just one. We're looking for more talent in the region. We continue to double down on investments in the region, build more capacity. I mean, from my perspective, we actually manage, based in Malaysia, our customers are based out of Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, Singapore, Philippines, India, Hong Kong, just to name a few. So as you can see, this is our base, and this is where we want to grow.
Yeah, thank you, Anand, giving that confidence of Malaysia as a hub for Southeast Asia, even Asia Pacific, right? So I think is that, speaking about what Asia Pacific, then probably the next question I have to address to Prof. Vinesh is that hearing from the demand of where the industry is moving, like the government investing a lot into cybersecurity matters, putting up policies, right? And Mr. Anand just mentioned is that we want to make sure that Malaysia as a hub into Asia Pacific business, right? So Prof. Vinesh is that maybe from the perspective of how different cybersecurity courses today, or universities that offering cybersecurity courses today, is that 10 years ago versus now and versus the next 5 years or 10 years down the road? Prof. Vinesh.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. You see, there is definitely a skills gap shortage in the industry. One good testament to that is every graduate that APU produces in the cybersecurity discipline has got 3 jobs waiting for them. So that's a testament to the shortage of skills gap in Malaysia. At APU, since we are a tech university, we pride on technology from the 1990s till today. I think we were the first university to actually offer a cybersecurity course. So we offer cybersecurity courses. Yeah, we've got 3 of them: the business information security, cybersecurity, and forensics. Yeah, this is basically the entire spectrum for the cybersecurity discipline. We have about 650 to 700 students, and every year we see a leap of easily 15 to 20% in this discipline alone. Having said that, we are also churning out graduates, the talents that are coming into the pipeline, going into the workforce. So it is very important for us to ensure that their entire journey on campus is sufficient in terms of skills and knowledge when they actually go into the job market. Another good testament of the demand is, and I think some of you will cry, because when I first heard that, I shed a tear, yeah, is that they are the highest paid individuals in the tech industry. So my highest graduate is 7,200 ringgit. Don't quote me, but I actually cried when I heard that, because I reflected on my time when I first graduated many years ago, many years ago, and I said, bloody hell, you're actually getting this much, yeah? But good for you. Yeah, it's a local company that is actually able to pay that much. So that's a testament again to the demand shortage, right? So what we do on campus is that we have these 3 programs. We've got more than 650 students. We ensure that they are exposed, and that is very important. We pride on industry being on campus. We've got 26 cybersecurity partners, all local companies. That is among the 800 over partners we have in Malaysia. Now, how many of you all know 26 cybersecurity companies? Victor, do you know 26 companies? Obviously you know, because you are part of the bridging exercise. Yeah. So we partner with 26 companies, and some of them sit on our industry advisory panel. They advise us on curriculum content, because that trendy and currency of the content is very important. We expose our students to the infrastructure that we have. We have, I would say, the #1 infrastructure for cybersecurity in Southeast Asia, because after the borders opened, I was lucky enough to travel to Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore. And if I want to benchmark against the NTUs and the NUSs, we are there or better, just for cybersecurity. Yeah, we have the cyber range, and we have the security operations center. We like to thank MDEC for helping us bridge that, and those facilities sit within our cybersecurity talent zone. So if you want to produce talents, you must have the infrastructure beyond the curriculums, and we have the infrastructure. Our cyber range, in partnership with Cyber Tests and in partnership with Cyber Intelligence. So one foreign French company, one local company, we were able to set up this infrastructure that allows them to sit in a cyber range, and curriculums have embedded the usage of the cyber range in the subjects that they take. We also have a security operations center, thanks to MDEC again for bridging. We partner Tech40, another prominent local cybersecurity company. We have set up the security operations center. So with a SOC and cyber range, we're the only ones in Malaysia that has the combination of both. Students man 50 hours in the SOC, the SOC, as a mandatory requirement before they graduate. Now, how many students do you think can actually go and sit and expose themselves to a SOC? Not many. Because an SOC is normally in a basement, hidden, is like the Pentagon of any FI or any organization that has one, right? So we give them that exposure. Plus they are manning it 50 hours. They man tier 1 attacks, which they solve, troubleshoot on their own. Tier 2, they raise the red flag, and it goes up to the SOC manager. Now, this is all exposure that happens on campus. The other thing is industry partnerships. We have professional certification programs that the students in year 2 and year 3 undertake. They qualify with these professional certifications, which is actually for industry. And we like to thank our partners for that. We have CompTIA, we have Rochester, I'm naming a few, that actually offer programs in certification. This is where you get exposure to denial of service, DOS, InfoSec, and all kinds of attacks, yeah? All the vectors, all the different scenario scenes that are prominent, but you only get to realize this when you go into the industry, but you're getting that exposure on campus. So the cybersecurity talent zone that we have also has other facilities inside. We have the IoT research center. So IoT plays a very important part in cybersecurity because of the connectivity that everything is based on, the Internet of Everything. Yeah. So that is also important. We have a partner in Cisco where we have a networking academy where all the switching and all the routing exercises are done. People learn about networking because network security is very important in the industry, and that is the exposure that the students and the talents get. So 1:3 jobs. Can you imagine that? So definitely a shortage, very clear cut.
Yeah, I can echo to that statement to say that cybersecurity jobs is one of the highest paying jobs in the industry. Not only that, it's because of the shortage of talent today. You heard from Prof. Vinesh mentioning about 650 students in the campus. There's a statistics that we run before is that by 2024, we need 18,000 cybersecurity professionals in the country, just for Malaysia, supporting Malaysia businesses, and all the investment that coming into Malaysia, like from F-Secure and with Secure, right? So with that expect probably is that, I would like to throw these next questions to Puan Sharifah, right? As a government leading agencies that looking at this coordination of all these policy together is that how we want to make sure the success of connecting the business requirement that we hear from F-Secure, the talent requirement from Prof. Vinesh, and also is that the demand of the rest of the industry, because cybersecurity, as what we just learned today, is that this is just the beginning, right? With the cloud, with the 5G, with the new emerging tech that come into the picture, is that how the country can manage this requirement moving forward from the government's perspective.
Okay, Victor. One thing that I would like to pick up from what Anand mentioned as well as Prof mentioned is, Anand, you said about changing. So, yes, I totally agreed about that. Cybersecurity is about change. You need to accept change for cybersecurity, which one is changing of the mindset, second, changing of the culture. These two things can only happen if you have the right people. And Prof mentioned about the gaps that we are facing in terms of skills. We always talk about the solutions in cybersecurity where we talk about people, process, and technology. I will always say that the most fundamental things in terms of solving cybersecurity issues is people. People equals to skill. People will allow the right leadership to lead in terms of shaping how actually we want to articulate cybersecurity at national level. Cybersecurity is not about just putting security controls. Cybersecurity is also opportunities. At national level, one of the things, key things that government is in progress as well as doing the best in terms of managing cybersecurity at national level is bringing the most effective governance with the right collaborations. One thing that the government have done is by introducing the new directive, Directive number 26, National Cybersecurity Management, which replaced the Directive number 24 that only confined to the protection of critical national information infrastructure. The new Directive of number 26 indicate how actually government looks cybersecurity as a whole. There is a one committee that looks cybersecurity at strategic level, recognizing that cybersecurity is a national security issues, but it is as well as an economic issues that needs to be addressed to, where there are three committees under there. First, that look into cybercrime per se. Secondly, it looks into the protection of critical information infrastructure as well as national cyber crisis incidences. Thirdly, look into the most important things, which is cybersecurity awareness. So in order for us to do that, it will be in line with the cybersecurity strategy that we have indicated. I know that the strategy actually being launched in 2020, but due to the to COVID-19, there are a lot of things that the government needs to catch up. And one of the things that government is doing, apart from introducing the directive number 26, is to look on the study to introduce a specific cybersecurity act, where we are in the pipeline of doing that. The first report is being reviewed. It is planned to be tabled to the cabinet next year. This cybersecurity act is to see whether, one, our country need a specific act to address cybersecurity, just like some of the countries, or we need to look into the holistic legislation that we have in Malaysia to allow a country to protect our cybersecurity ecosystem as a whole without impeding national security, but also accelerate the economic value that cybersecurity brings in. So these are the two things that we really focus on. And lastly, the things that I think has been repeatedly announced about the awareness and educations, this is also one of the focus that government are looking at. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharifa. I think is that that is actually a first-hand information you're hearing. Government is reviewing the cyber law, and then the idea behind it is because I think there's a lot of connecting laws between all the different ministry and agencies, right? So I think a review of a cyber law could be a very, very progressive matter forward, right? So if we can take one questions, maybe MC.
All right, let's just check whether we have any questions on Slido.
So if we can take one question, if no, then probably we ask the final questions. No questions?
So far, we have none.
Okay, good. Yeah. Probably it's lunchtime, right? But I think that if we could sum up just one line information that that you want the audience to carry back, maybe is start with you, Mr. Anand.
I know we're holding you back between lunch and this discussion here, but it's a very important one, right? But the good thing about this session is the industry, the policymaker, as well as the education, all of that is together. And, you know, MDEC is doing a lot of these things to bring them together as well. To sum it up, what I would say is cybersecurity is an important change that all of us need to take care, even within our own self as well. Most times we think that the cybersecurity breach happens within us and we are kind of safe. But what we tend to forget is there's a lot of cybersecurity breaches that happen with large databases as well. So get yourself informed of these things. Check your own data that's there. Identity protection wise, protect yourself. There are some free tools also on our side that you can actually come and check as well. But be informed, stay curious, continue to ask questions, and of course, reach out to any one of us here for any other questions that you may have.
Sharifa?
I would say that cybersecurity is not a technological problem. And don't look cybersecurity as a problem. It is a big opportunity for individual, for enterprises, as well as for a country. So while we have technology will provide tools, but at the most important part is government. As government, we need to facilitate in improving the awareness and raising the culture of awareness in cyber hygiene. And also, we need to indicate and facilitate the ecosystem to have the right people in the cybersecurity environment with the right skills.
Pravinish?
Yeah, I continue to preach this industry on campus. I think the industry must play a part in the programs and curriculums developed at institutions. So for the sake of cybersecurity, which will always evolve, I think industry has to come to campus, be part of our journey. A very good example, I forgot to say this just now, is Cybersecurity Malaysia. They played a pivotal role in our latest development, Victor, which now we have now advanced our forensic center. We have a third place within the cybersecurity talent zone. We have actually evolved it, built an entire portal and cybersecurity management system, dedicated server, spy kits and all that. Now we can do malware detection on devices. and that is our next role, because we want actually our students and talents to start working on actual projects and do it as a service. And that's real life experience, yeah?
Yep. So as conclusion, I think is that cybersecurity is a subject of opportunities. Cybersecurity is a subject of where government need to coordinate all the efforts and energy together between the providers and the the ecosystem of talent, and make sure that these two works in a synonym manner, right? So I think with that, I would like to thank the panel for this afternoon, and it's lunchtime. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Victor and our panelists, Sharifah Rashida, Anand Renukanan, and Professor Dr. Vinesh. Thank you so much for all of your input into this very important topic of cybersecurity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before you head to lunch, please do send us some feedback on the session. We'd love to know what you thought about this topic and also what was discussed by our panelists. Before you leave, allow me to quickly summarize this session very quickly before we close the breakout room for the day. Malaysia takes cybersecurity seriously with the establishment of the National Cybersecurity Agency and the formulation of the National Cybersecurity Strategy to table a Cybersecurity Act next year. Now, only with industry input and effective governance can the right legislations be formulated to strengthen those laws. The shift to working from home has highlighted how data protection across fluid workspaces remains a vulnerable area to consider, and new ways of working will highlight how cybersecurity needs to evolve. Now, also highlighted was that there is a shortage for cybersecurity talents, with high demand of up to 20% for such skills, with the highest pay in the industry on offer. To produce such talents, the infrastructure to train them needs to be in place, which Malaysia has offered through MDEC. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, cybersecurity begins with you and me, protecting our own data. So it starts with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we've come to the end of our panel sessions in this room today, thereby bringing track 2 to a close. In today's session, we touched on how digital talent is in ready supply in Malaysia, but that our challenge will be on ensuring their skill sets match the industry requirements and that we can retain or attract back our digital talents from Malaysia. Number 2, how Malaysia is poised to be a game changer in the global data center industry with key advantages in its strategic location, natural resources, land, infrastructure, renewable energy, and a great digital talent pool. However, challenges that need to be addressed include power supply capacity, energy costs, and data protection. And finally, in our last session, how Malaysia takes cybersecurity seriously with the establishment of NACSA and the National Cybersecurity Strategy, but legislations need to be put in place urgently, and more talent needs to be developed to manage the shortage. We hope you've enjoyed the discussions, that the insights shared will give you plenty to consider and work on together as Malaysia Digital Week comes to a close this evening. Please join us now for our networking lunch outside this room at the foyer, ladies and gentlemen, before the main hall reopens for the remaining panel sessions today and our closing ceremony later. On behalf of MDEC, I'd like to thank you all for joining me in Breakout Room 2, and please do accept our sincere apologies for my voice and for any shortcomings on my end over the last 2 days. May you continue to enjoy the rest of the sessions and find them productive. Until next time, I'm Shani Iman Lee signing off. Selamat sejahtera and have a great day.